he's a walking testimonial of, he was about to die and living a decade longer and seeing four more grandchildren be born and out golfing again and doing all
Mm.
the things and really truly living his life. So that's a huge part of why I stuck to supporting people with cancer because I'm just so fascinated by how incredible our body is. There's
Mm.
never someone where I'm like, oh, you've run out of options. That sucks. Like, too
Yeah.
bad. Like there's never that thought in my head. It's always, what else? What else? What else are we missing? What else can we do? And I have this such a core belief of how powerful our body is and it can overcome anything.
Hey, and welcome to today's conversation. I am so excited today. I have an amazing guest. Her name is Lori Bouchard, and she is an incredible naturopathic doctor in Canada, but she's living in Mexico and she's doing some incredible work. I had the opportunity of working with her, and through working with her, I was like, damn, you're badass. You're doing incredible work. You have an amazing story. And more people need to know about you because cancer is something, unfortunately, that so many people are either going through, will go through, or have been affected by it. And I wanted to bring her on the show today because I want to give you some of the tools and information for you to feel empowered on your cancer journey, whether you have gone through cancer, are going through it, or you know a loved one. So let's welcome Lori to the show.
Awesome. Thank you, Deidre. Thank you so much. And yes, it's such an important topic because the stats are one of every two people will have a cancer diagnosis in their lifetime. If that stat doesn't just horrify you, it blows me away. And you think about how much control we can have in the situation if we understand what cancer really is and what it's not. And so if someone's listening who doesn't have cancer, it's like, how can we learn about our bodies and do everything possible so we're not part of that statistic?
I love this so much. And I just feel like I've always been a big believer that, maybe this is a little bit delusional, but that's okay. We all need a little delu in our life, a little bit of delusional in our life. Is I always believe that you can heal your body. I really do believe that you're able to heal your body through healing the emotions. And obviously, there's the physical body, there's other pieces that are involved. But I personally have been able to heal myself of autoimmune diseases, depression, anxiety, a lot of food sensitivities through doing the inner work. And that's great. And the inner work's important. The emotional work's important. And, checking your environment and who you are surrounding yourself with. But then there's like the physical body that has the toxic load, that has potentially the genetics that have been turned on, and all of those other things. And what I found from just being an observer in the healing space is some people go either super holistic and they're all about energy, and then other people go super medical. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about your perspective on kind of that pendulum swing of a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to do it all natural. I'm just going to meditate and I'm going to heal myself. Or, hey, I'm just going to do the chemotherapy road. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And I know
Yeah,
you talk about something totally different and we'll get into your story, but I want to hear like the
yeah.
thoughts on the extremes.
Yeah, and honestly, that came up even when we're working together, when you're saying, what are the top three things you think every single person after a cancer diagnosis needs? And it really does need to be a blend of all of them because you could do the perfect plan. I could hand deliver you the top research and all the things based on your epigenetics and physical infections and all the things that landed you to where you are right now. But if that plan is going to stress you out, and it's going to keep you up at night because you're so anxious over it. And deep down, you really don't feel you're capable of healing. That plan will not work. That
Yeah.
plan will not work. You could be delivered the best things from the top experts all over the world. So there has to be that combination of just having this deep knowing and this deep belief that your body can repair, but then also having those tools based on data of what's going on in the system to help integrate it. So I help people from all walks of life, whether you're going through chemo, you do not want to do chemo for whichever reason. The main reason is just so toxic, but we'll get into that too. But it really does have to be what feels aligned with you and then understanding what's going on in the body and creating next steps from there. But yes, you have to really like tune into that and believe in that because like I said, the best plan won't help anyone. And I've seen that many times in the clinic where I'll see someone who's like, yeah, you helped my brother become cancer free. And now ever since then, like I want my friend to come see you. And this friend that comes in is kind of like sitting there with their arms crossed and they're like, so what are you going to do? What are you
Right.
going to, like, how are you going to heal me? And I'm like, well, do you actually like, will you do the things? Like, will you understand what's going on? It just comes from a whole different energy. So, yes, you have
Mhm.
to really integrate all of it.
And it's interesting too, because belief is such a big piece. And I know that's a huge thing that we talked about when you're talking about those three critical steps. If you're perceptive and you believe it's possible, people are more likely to actually follow through on the protocol if they believe that they can get better. I
Mhm.
also would love just to speak a little bit about, if you're in a toxic environment and, like maybe that's relationship environment, it's not physical environment. And you have people who are like, oh, like you're gonna die now. Oh, why try? Like the impact of that, has that ever happened when you've had a client and they've just had a really negative environment of people around them, but
Yeah.
they've wanted to potentially break free from that? And how has that kind of impacted them?
Oh, and that is so powerful. The power of belief, right? Of what some authority figure has told you or whoever's in your life and saying, this is what's going to happen. And this actually happened recently where someone was, she was coming for maintenance. She was seeing the chiropractor in the clinic just for a sore neck. And so it was years where she was getting treated by this chiro. And she's like, I maybe sleep funny on it, or I'm dancing and like whip my neck a certain way, and things just happen. She's early 60s. So she thought maybe I'm just getting old and, there's something going on there where it's like just mechanical.
Right.
So this chiropractor was saying, you know what, you should feel better by now. Like there is something else maybe going on. So why don't you go get an MRI and just to see like it could just be neck pain. Maybe there's something out of place, but let's just dig deeper just in case. So she ended up getting an MRI done. They found stage freaking 4 lung cancer in her. And
Wow.
and this is someone who's like, I thought I was healthy. I go dancing 4 times a week. I do all the things and I feel great. And how could this happen? I'm not a smoker and I don't have all these other exposures to make me more predisposed for this. So, anyways, this patient, so she ended up getting different imaging done and scans done before they even found out what exactly the genetic expression was. The oncologist told her, you have the most aggressive type of lung cancer, and I give you 6 months tops.
Wow.
So this girl, she believed what he said, and she went home. She stopped dancing because she was afraid. Because he said if you fall, you could fracture something, and that could be a medical emergency. So you need to stop dancing. You need to, basically go home and slowly die. That's pretty much what he told her. And she believed it. So she stopped doing her hair. She literally like turned gray within like she didn't put any dyes and like do anything to her. Like she stopped wearing these cute little eyelashes that she loved so much. Like she literally just went home with this like, I'm gonna die. So what is like I have been given this grim diagnosis and she stopped all the things that she loved. Can you imagine that? So a doctor saying, this is what your prognosis is. Why are you even, trying? Because it's so aggressive. Give it a month later, they actually did other testing and said, you know what? It's actually not the type of cancer that we thought it was.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yes, and her mindset completely changed. She's like, well, I'm going to go back to dancing then. I'm going to go back to doing the things I love. I'm going to do all the. So you think of the power that these authority figures have on someone, right? And to say, like, wow, stop doing the things that you love to do. And that's the whole reason why you like to be alive, but you should stop them because this cancer could be moving around everywhere and live in this.
Wow.
So it's powerful. I see it time and time again where it's like those words carry a lot of weight. And it is up to us to really find like what is the truth in this and how much can we do to transform this situation? Because wow, yeah, I see it just time and time again.
That's so scary. Like, let's say that they didn't do more tests, okay? And maybe it wasn't even cancer, okay? Like I don't know. Let's say that someone's been diagnosed with cancer, but maybe it's not even cancer. There's a doctor that's like, ah, it must be this thing. So here it is. You have 6 months to live. Let's say that she, didn't have that conversation with him later on, that it's maybe not as aggressive or it's not that type of cancer, whatever. And she basically within 6 months dies because I truly believe, and I'd love to hear your belief on this. I truly believe that if I decide that it's true that I'm going to die in 6 months because someone told me and that my body is dying, I would potentially manifest that. Would you agree?
Ye- Totally. And everybody around her believes that too. So they're enforcing that next step of what's going to evolve. So if they're all like, "Oh, let me go make you this tea. Oh, sit down. Like I don't want, they treat her like a sick person and someone who's very frail and they shouldn't, she can't do this on her own and she needs, it's like that pity party, right? Instead
Yeah.
of, having people around you where it's like, let's keep building health. Let's keep focusing on how we can be the healthiest version of ourselves, not this this diagnosis that sounds like it just plopped out from outer space and now she's cursed with it, right? It's like something that's been
Hmm.
building in her system for probably over 10 years and didn't know. Right.
Wow.
And that's what most cancers, what happens is we
Hmm.
all have cancer cells and it can
Hmm.
take up to 10 years to even be seen on a scan. So for us to think, oh, this cancer diagnosis, like, well, it's been patterns and thought patterns. And like you said, people around you, like if they're feeding into negativity and they're toxic emotionally, what's that doing to your cortisol and your fear and your hormones? So yeah, we have to be very careful of what type of not just chemicals, but emotions come our way too.
Okay, I want to get into your story, but first I have a little story for you. So I was living in Mexico. This is like, I don't know, 3 years ago. And I went to this massage therapist came to my place and he was massaging my neck. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, like you need to go to the doctor. You might have cancer all in your neck." Like scared the shit out of me, okay? But I was like, you know what? I was also at like this really amazing retreat center that I was living in. It's all about vibration and manifestation. It was all about focus on what you want to create. I'm like, no, that's not true. So I blanked it out. I'm like, no. And then I think it was like a year after I was moving from one city to another, and a friend of mine, actually my neighbor, she does ultrasound. She's an ultrasound tech. And I was just like, hey, I had this really freaky, like a year later, by the way, I had this really freaky thing happen with a healer slash massage therapist in Mexico. Can you just check me? So she brings me to the hospital, like not on record, and she scans basically my entire body, my armpits, my breasts, my neck. She's like, "You have absolutely nothing at all to worry about. These are normal lymphatic spots. Like you're good." And I was just, but it created this feeling in me of like maybe I have something. And maybe, you know what, maybe it was great that he said that, because if it was something, but he scared me and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I've had a friend, total flip side of it, who went to the doctor multiple times about a mole on her neck. And she's like, "Oh, I just feel like something's wrong with me, like this mole on my neck." Doctor's like, "You're fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine." And then she's out one day, and this is years ago, where she's out on a boat with a bunch of friends. I guess they're drinking, and there's this, surgeon on the boat, and he looks at her neck, and he's like, "Laura, that looks like skin cancer. You should get that checked out." Like, and this is probably a year or two after she was going to the doctors and she had like this intuition. And then she went to the doctors and they did a little sample or whatever, and she had cancer all throughout her all throughout her neck and even into her armpits.
Mhm.
And so it's really interesting. I think intuition is really important. But yeah, what are your thoughts on all of that? I just wanted to share that with you. I was like, you have to hear these stories.
Yes, and it is mind blowing because you're right. Your mind can go into a dark hole and dark black hole with thoughts of like, what could this be? And so this is super common with someone after a cancer diagnosis. They could even be in remission, but every little symptom turns into, is this cancer?
Right.
I have a back pain. Is this, oh my gosh, is there now cancer in my bone? Or I have a headache. Do I now have brain cancer? It really does go that extreme where every little symptom, you think the worst case scenario, because that's just kind of the focus of what your life has been. So this is where understanding the data is so important. So there's lab work that I do every 3 months and with an active cancer every month just to make sure the trends are going in the right direction. So there's screening tools that you can see, has cancer moved to the bone? Is this something that we need to worry about? Or is there so much inflammation that you are at higher risk of cancer growth, right? So really getting the data on that and then understanding, okay, no, we took a full history and you just pulled a muscle. So it's a normal part of after working out and
Yeah.
repairing. But really looking at that data because often you don't know until you do proper screening. But you're right, your intuitive part of it too has to be there of like, okay, I did just work out and this makes sense. Or I haven't had water all day. That's why I have a headache. I don't have brain cancer. This is something that it's
Hmm.
a symptom of my body telling me I need to get hydrated. So yeah, it's kind of like checking yourself and saying, what are the facts here? What is my body trying to tell me? And
Hmm.
then making action steps from that.
I love that. So I know you have a story. This is such a great story. I love the listeners to hear your story of how you got into this work because, it is very a specific type of work that you do. It's to help people who are going through cancer, prevent them from going through cancer and treat cancer. So let's talk a little bit about your story. Like share your story with us today.
Sure. Well, thank you for even helping with this story because my before meeting, I'm like, yeah, I just help people, get rid of their cancer. No big deal. Like not it's not a big deal.
It's kind of a big deal, actually. I tell
No
everyone
big
about it.
deal. We just
I'm like,
help
if
them
you
get
don't
into
know who
remission.
Dr. Lori is, what are you doing with your life?
Like it's really like another day. It's fine. But yeah, you really helped me just kind of realize like, wow, this is really, really interesting as far as like how powerful the body is, and I see it on a daily basis of how much our body can transform even when we're in the lowest of lows and it may feel like you're stuck in that situation you can never get out of it but it really is something that tomorrow's another day and you never know what is going to happen. And so, yeah, when I first graduated medical school, my very first patient had cancer. He was in a wheelchair, just completely slumped over, just was given a month to live. His wife was just listing off, we've tried this chemotherapy, all the things to help cure his cancer, to get rid of cancer. And she told me that if he was given one more chemo, that he would die. Like they're literally at their wits end and they said he's pretty much in palliative, there's another month, get your affairs in order, and we're here just to see like what else is there to do. So here I
Yeah.
am, this like 24-year-old naturopathic doctor thinking like, holy shit, you have seen the top experts in oncology and all the top doctors and now you're here in my office looking for something else. And what was really interesting is I didn't have a big oncology background. That was not my main focus in school. I wanted to get into like fertility and help with athletes and with
Totally different.
digestive, help with like anti-aging and
Yeah,
all the
you're
other.
like, I actually just want to do Botox and filler. Like, why? What's happening here?
I'll help it boost your confidence and just feeling and looking better. That's what I wanted to do.
God
And
had a different plan. Universal's like, no, we're doing something different, Lori.
yeah. Yeah, it was like literally one of those situations where I'm thinking like, wow, this is a curveball. So I'll never forget how he looked at me though. He just looked in his eyes with so much hope and said, I'm not ready to go. He's like, I'm
Mhm.
not ready to go. I want to see my first grandchild be born in the end of the year. So I want to be here for another 6 months, just until Christmas. That's all I ask. And so, and the other thing he said is if I can go golfing again in the spring, that would just be a bonus too. If I could just have another few months to go one more round of golf, like that would be an extra bonus. So he had a sense of humor there, but I could see the hope in his eyes, like it was really the underlying force of what even brought him into the clinic in the first place, of he was not ready to go. And I really believed him. So even though I didn't have this oncology background, this was 16 years ago, I knew I had to learn everything there was to how did he get into this position in the first place? Why does he even have cancer? What are all the things that we can do that he hasn't addressed yet? And the more questions I started to ask him, I realized he was missing a whole piece of what makes someone healthy in the first place.
Mhm.
So for him, we were really diving into understanding his body was full of heavy metals from all the chemo that he did. How on earth can you build a healthy, robust hemoglobin levels and immune system if it's been completely knocked out by chemo, right? Or how can you have a strong immune system if you're full of glyphosates from being a golfer for all these years? So he was full of heavy metals, full of glyphosates, chemicals, he was like this swimming pool of toxicity in his system. So I looked at him as if, how can I just keep him alive another day? How can we support cleaning up his body and giving him all the foundations that someone needs to live, essentially? Like, forget about the cancer piece. Let's just keep him alive for a few days to get his strength back. So, day by day, we're implementing all the things to help clean up his body, support his immune system, to support all the things, and really did have this strong faith to it, too. He truly believed he is going to see his grandchild in the spring or in the fall or in the winter. He knew that. He just like to his core knew he was going to do that. So he stuck to all the protocols. He did all the things within the clinic and did everything possible. He's dedicated. And for him, it was 10 years later that
Mm.
he is still thriving. So this is a big deal where, for someone who was at their wits' end and said there's nothing left, and like you said, all the people around him was like, you're toast. Like, why are you even trying? For him to even come into the office and say, there's got to be something else. There's got to be,
Mm.
maybe there's one other thing that I can try. For him, he completely grew my cancer and oncology clinic and practice because he was such a strong believer of, like he's a walking testimonial of, he was about to die and living a decade longer and seeing four more grandchildren be born and out golfing again and doing all
Mm.
the things and really truly living his life. So that's a huge part of why I stuck to supporting people with cancer, because I'm just so fascinated by how incredible our body is. There's
Mm.
never someone where I'm like, oh, you've run out of options. That sucks. Like, too
Yeah.
bad. Like there's never that thought in my head. It's always, what else? What else? What else are we missing? What else can we do? And I have this such a core belief of how powerful our body is and it can overcome anything.
I love that so much. And what I love about it is he went to everyone else. Okay, there's a few different pieces here. You thought you were gonna do like work with athletes, maybe get into like cosmetic stuff as a doctor. And then, there was a different plan for you, which is perfect. There was a challenge, and you're like, okay, let's see what we can do. I'm going to support you. And you were looking at things that a lot of other doctors wouldn't look at. So, a lot of people, what I find, especially the older generation, I'm thinking of my parents, right? My parents are like late 60s, early 70s. To them, they're all about like the traditional path. They're like, oh, if this is how things are, this is what you need to do. Everything else is like witchcraft or whatever. Actually, my dad did a natural cancer protocol in India for like 2 or 3 years, where he just basically had like, I don't even know what he had, but he had like all of these medicines every day that were natural for like 3 years. Because like a lot of people will just go the oncology way. They'll be like, oh, these are the doctors, they know what they're doing. But as you mentioned, and I really want to bring attention to this to anyone who's listening right now, is you said two really important things. You said he was full of heavy metals and he had all these toxins from golfing. So the thing is, if we look at the heavy metals, I was diagnosed with just a ton of heavy metals years and years ago, and it was really affecting my energy and my brain function, everything. This is probably like 7 years ago. I was like, something is really wrong with me. And I went to a naturopathic doctor. We did a bunch of tests after going to a ton of other doctors wanting to know what's wrong with me. And they're like, oh, you have a ton of mercury. I'm like, well, I don't really eat a lot of fish. How is this happening? They're like, well, anything from China, this is what they said, anything from China that you touch has basically lead, mercury, etc. on it, and it goes into your skin. Any product that you're putting on your skin, like lipstick, makeup, all those things, is going into your skin, and it can be one of the reasons why you have heavy metals. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no one else found this. This is great. So that's good to know. And this is someone didn't have cancer. So heavy metals can totally mess you up from doing chemotherapy and all of that. And then you mentioned, hey, this guy's golfing. There's a ton of chemicals from him being on the golf course all the time. A lot of people who are golfing and playing sports outside, they would never think about that. So let's talk a little bit more about what some of these chemicals are connected to and how people need to really, be more due diligent with being aware of what they're being exposed to. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm like non-toxic living, like I should be fine. How did I get cancer? Let's talk about how people are actually getting cancer.
Yeah, there's so much to dig into on this. Where do we start? Because
I know.
really, I'm like, there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah, we take on chemicals and metals from 4 generations back.
That's
So
wild.
even if you are living this clean, green, this not stepping outside to any pollution, you're just like this picture perfect, no exposures, you are still getting handed down what your mom was exposed to. And so they've actually done this with the environmental working group. They've done studies on the placenta, and they see the average amount of chemicals is 232 different chemicals in newborn babies. So we were all
Whoa.
born into this world with a toxin load, right?
Wow.
And so even if we're like, we're doing all the right things, which I would say is pretty much impossible to be doing all the right things just based on being alive and whatever your hobbies are. And you're right, the exposures to things that are just so out of your control, but understanding what was your mom's environment like, what was her mom's environment like, because we are taking all that on. And this actually happened to myself where I'm like, there's no way I'd be full of mercury. Like, there's no way. I don't eat a ton of fish and amalgams have been removed, like all those things.
Right.
My mom used to like play with the thermometers when she was in nursing school, like the mercury in those thermometers. And so her body was full of mercury. And
Wow.
of course, I got like, thanks, mom. I got passed that down to me because of what her exposures were. And then you tie that in with different epigenetics. So some people are better at processing these metals and chemicals than others.
Mm.
So you may wonder that too, of like, okay, did all of his golfing friends end up with lymphoma as well? So there is a correlation of high glyphosate and exposure, like chemical exposures, and higher risk of lymphatic cancers. And so you would think every golfer should essentially have lymphoma, right? If they have that chronic exposure to it. But it really does depend on your lifestyle. Are you getting, are you detoxing regularly? And also what your detox pathways are made up of. So some of us have very compromised, like genetically compromised detox pathways where we just cannot eliminate it, where someone else could be like smoking, inhaling all the stuff, and they seem to be fine. So you do have to
Hmm.
pair those together and understand, how can we take your genetic predispositions and change all the lifestyle habits that can help how your body is taking these carcinogens, like these cancer causing chemicals, and help
Hmm.
eliminate it safer.
So powerful. So a couple things that you said that I want to go a little bit deeper on is you mentioned specific. So some of us we've definitely all carry chemicals from our parents. So this is just more of a personal question, okay? And for all the ladies there who want to have children, is it important to do a lot of detoxing before you try to conceive?
Yeah, like just based on what I'm for sure, right?
Yeah.
It's like you are carrying through, and even you think about like fat soluble compounds, and there's what are called forever chemicals that are just really tricky to get rid of. So
Hmm.
that will be passed on to your children. So the cleaner that your system can be, it's not only helping with a healthy pregnancy and helping to sustain hormones and ensuring the best outcomes, but yes, for the health of your child's immune system and how they're going to be produced, and their health is definitely affected. So, yeah, absolutely.
So powerful. So let's talk a little bit about specific chemicals. You mentioned that there are specific chemicals that are potentially directly related to a specific type of cancer. So we know that, yes, you may get this type of cancer if you're exposed to it, but you might not because of, what you were born into and how your system can digest and, eliminate it. But what are some of the chemicals that are connected to different types of cancer? I know we talked about this when we were working together, and I was just like, oh my gosh, everyone needs to know this everywhere. If I could have a megaphone, I would use the megaphone if I could pronounce these chemicals. But if we can break it down on what type of chemical it is and how we're exposed to it and potentially some of the cancers that are related to it, I think that'd be so powerful.
Yeah, so the main ones would be the heavy metals that we talked about.
Okay.
So mercury being a big one. So like we said, it could be what's passed on to you or you're getting through your environment. But the most common cancer types when it comes to heavy metals usually is, interesting enough, more bladder cancers. And it makes sense, right? If you think of like your bladder is just holding on to fluid, and it's if you are high toxicity levels and your body is overburdened with that, bladder is the one that's most associated with heavy metal toxicity. The other thing is cadmium. So if you are exposed to cadmium or other heavy metals, it can actually mimic estrogen in the
What's
body.
cadmium? Like, how are you exposed to that typically?
Yeah, where would that be?
I've never heard that before. So I'm like, I don't know if I'm being exposed to it. Help us out.
Yes, I know. So most of the time with a lot of these metals that we're finding, they're usually even in the soil surrounding our where the food is being produced. Cadmium could be like secondhand smoke, right?
Okay.
But the soil is the top one. So even if you're eating organic foods, you have to look at what the soil is comprised of because that's what's going to
Mm.
be obviously in the food. So you could be having, the best vegetarian diet, but if that food was grown near a power plant or the fertilizer was full of chemicals, then we know that you're ingesting that on a daily basis. So that's a big part of like why I am detoxing every day. Whether that
Mm.
means like sweating in Mexico, that's not too hard to do, but sweating and just getting binders in every day, helping how my body is eliminating because I truly believe that we all have this source of heavy metals, whether it's from healthy foods or from like secondhand smoke, walking by some, or even a lot of us have grown up around smokers because it used to be
Hmm.
allowed everywhere, right? But
Hmm.
cadmium that you can get from, like I said, from foods or from tobacco, that one's highly associated with breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, breast cancer, more so the estrogen dominant type of breast cancer, but we know that most cells in our body actually have estrogen receptors. So even like lung cancer is stimulated by estrogens and same with colon cancers. So those ones are really interesting. And then the other ones would be arsenic too. Like arsenic is really high in rice, like believe it or not. And so you have to,
Oh,
yeah, and I'm not sure why that is, but that's something that you want to make sure that when you're even cooking rice to be cleaning it out properly so then you're not driving this condition. And some people genetically they can't dispose of arsenic. So there's certain
so you
genetic
clean your
SNPs.
rice first and then is that what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I even add in like apple cider vinegar or just like rinsing out the rice
Hmm.
before you cook it because that one has been shown to be high in arsenic. Yeah. Yeah, when you look at cancer more as a metabolic disease, it really is the accumulation of everything, right? And
Mm.
so someone could have just say, just say they have Epstein-Barr virus. Like Epstein-Barr virus is linked to lymphatic cancers as well. And so not everybody with Epstein-Barr virus is going to have cancer, right? Just like we
Right.
said with the glyphosates and your exposures, but it really is an accumulation of everything that they're exposed to that can turn these genes on and to develop cancers down the road. So that's really important that even though we're being aware of like, okay, we know we should avoid chemicals and carcinogens and all those things, but we have to look at that full picture of, how are you sleeping at night? What is your stress levels? Are you pooping every day? Are you sweating every day? Are you drinking enough water? Like all those foundational things that just the human body needs in order to eliminate the things that are harmful.
Okay, I'm about to laugh over here because you did a video on the squatty potty, your Instagram. And you know what I did? I purchased a squatty potty. And then my partner was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's the squatty potty." He's like, "What does it do?" I'm like, "You know what? All I know is that Lori said it's good for you, so I bought it." He's like, "Who's Lori?" I'm like, "Oh, Lori, I've told him about you, right?" So it's just super funny, but like anything that you can do to help with digestion and to eliminate. So on that note, I know you have three critical steps, three critical areas that if we either whether we have cancer or if we want to prevent cancer because they're hand in hand, or maybe we've had cancer, we don't have it anymore, but we want to heal and clean up our body so that we don't get cancer again, et cetera. We want to strengthen our immune system. Let's talk about the three critical steps. What's the
Mhm.
first thing that, whether, someone who doesn't have cancer wants to prevent cancer or wants to, prevent,
Mhm.
it getting worse?
Yeah, and I'm very passionate about people understanding what is going on in their body and not just assuming that because we're healthy or we feel healthy and don't have symptoms that we don't have a risk for cancer. Not to be like Debbie Downer and doom and gloom, but we
Right.
all do have this ability to create cancer cells, and we all have cancer cells in our body all the time, and it's up to our immune system to recognize them and get rid of them. So step one is really about understanding what your levels are and what does the data show. So I have a free guide on my website for anyone listening. They can access this. It's an ultimate cancer screening guide, but it goes through the things that I personally check at least once a year just to know how inflamed is my body? What does the fuel for cancer look like in my system? How can I regulate my body differently and understand what those risk factors are? So understanding the data, doing the test, whether it's blood work or even, a poop test. Do you have parasites ever since going to Mexico 5 years ago? Do you have overgrowth of bacteria from, being on antibiotics when you were younger? There's so many things that can contribute to where your health is now, and getting the tests are really the top way to understand where your baseline is. So getting testing is huge, understanding what you potentially need to detox from, because just doing a straightforward detox, you don't really know what you're targeting, right? It's like
Hmm.
just going to a store and buying a detox kit. Like, you want to actually be more precise. If you're higher in mercury, there's certain binders that you need to be using. If you have high glyphosate, there's other binders that you would want to be using. So understanding the data and detoxing any obstacle that you
Hmm.
have that could be a barrier to your ultimate health, you need to understand that first and foremost.
So when we talk about binders, I know what a binder is, but our listeners might not know what a binder is. So do you want to just break down what a binder is and why it's important for detoxification?
Yeah, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It binds to something that should not be in your system.
So
So
the
think of it as
toxin.
like, yeah, so if there's anything like we said, heavy metals or things that just should not, that's not promoting health. Like, no one should have metal, like aluminum in their body. Nobody should have lead. Like, that's just not something that our system needs to function. So binders would be something that acts kind of like a magnet in your system to help draw it out, whether it's through your urine or when you go have a bowel movement, it's being carried out that way. And so a binder that you could think of is, this is something that's maybe not intentional that people are likely doing every day, is a binder like coffee would be a binder to iron.
Oh.
So if you're anemic, then the last thing you want to be doing is drinking coffee
Oh my
around
gosh, I'm drinking
meals.
coffee and I have thalassemia, which means I'm basically always anemic. So I probably should stop drinking coffee.
So yeah, coffee is a binder to that anemic situation that you have going on,
Oh
and it
my
will
gosh.
absolutely
This
make
is
it worse.
breakthrough moment. I actually quit coffee for like 2 weeks and I felt so good. And then I'm like, I can bring it back in, just only one cup a day, do you?
So then you would want to time that coffee around, not for sure, not around food, and for sure not around the iron supplement that you're taking, because coffee would bind to that and prevent it from being absorbed in your system.
This is so big. And I'm just thinking about too, and you can let me know if this is intuitively right or if it's just plain wrong. I think about women with our menstrual cycle. If we're feeling exhausted and tired and like depleted, maybe just not having coffee during the cycle is probably good,
Yeah, like coffee
right?
is yeah, you mean like for energy wise, or like the
Energy wise, because we're typically like feeling depleted because we're losing a lot of iron, and that's why our energy is lower. So I can just imagine that if we're having coffee, it's just making it worse, like as far as like feeling depleted.
Exactly. So you want to look at it as like, okay, I'm losing blood right now. What can I do to rebuild my system? And so even like electrolytes and water, like that will just help with hydration too, and just how your cells are all communicating and help with energy. But you're right. Usually when you're feeling tired and depleted, that's when you would reach for coffee and think like, oh, that's what I need. But really it is looking at all the other symptoms. Like, maybe you need magnesium. Maybe there's other minerals that you can fuel your body with versus a
Mm.
quick fix that's going to give you that dip later.
Okay, I have a question for you, and this is connected, but maybe a little bit of a sidetrack, just because like I think that products are really important that people consume. When it comes to products that are trendy, okay, this could be coffee. Coffee is like always a trend. Everyone wants coffee. But let's say sea moss or supplements or protein. How can you make sure that there aren't heavy metals in these products? Because the more I learn about health and wellness, and I've had friends and clients that are naturopathic doctors, and I joke that if I were to ever become something different in the past, I would do that because I love geeking out on all of this. Is how can you make sure that when you are taking supplements to boost your body that they don't contain heavy metals and other issues and other things? Is there like certain brands that you recommend or things that you would look into? I'm just curious about that because I recently started taking sea moss and I immediately was like, oh, is there going to be heavy metals in this? And, you know,
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And even more importantly, for those binders that we're talking about, they bind. So you could see like, okay, if they bind those things in our body, how are they binding and collecting things in the environment the way that they were processed, right? So you think
right.
about like chlorella or spirulina, they're really great binders and help clean out your system, clean out your blood. But if you're getting spirulina or chlorella that's not third party tested, it could be high in heavy metals because that's what they do. They attract things, right? And they attract that into the supplement too. So that's a really good question. And you have to have third party tested and medical grade supplements. Like there's
Okay.
no, do not waste your money on anything that was like made without that third party check. And that's
Okay.
so important because you're right. There's in Canada, at least, there's no, you could, anyone can just make a supplement and just sell it, right? And so if
Hmm.
usually you look at the price of it too, and if it's super cheap, you're like, they probably didn't do the testing to make sure it's legit. And they don't even have to say what's on the label. Like they could leave things out, even though it's in that capsule. So it is
Wow.
a pretty scary world. And I am a huge fan of supplements, but they have to be medical grade.
Okay. I don't know if you have a blog that you know, post in weekly, but I would like to see a blog out of you because I selfishly want to learn all of the things all of the time of what's on your mind. But I know you have a membership. So, you know, you've got your amazing membership, your metabolic reset membership, which we'll have in the show notes for anyone who's interested in like diving deep on this more consistently. But what I love about this conversation so far is there's so much that we don't know unless we first of all get testing to see where we're at. Number one. Number two, there are so many ways that we are being affected negatively by the environment, by our food. Rice, for example. Okay, this is so funny. We had rice last night and I rinsed it. I did. But I was like, do I really need to do this? I didn't even know why I was doing it. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't put apple cider vinegar on it. Oh no, I'm like, these are things that are, you know, it's one extra step, but it can make a huge difference. So I'm so grateful that you just shared that, you know, there's chemicals on rice because I would have never thought. And I don't think most people are asking themselves these questions. So this is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I know. It's really just one extra step and definitely you want to do that. But then I also have the people where it's like it consumes them, right? Where it's like the food phobias and the
Right.
fears, and they're just like, I can't eat anything. Everything is toxic. How do I live? What am I supposed to eat? And what am I supposed to do? And so, yes, like you want to be aware and take all those precautions, but then also understanding too that we can support how your body is eliminating more effectively as well. So you don't have to live in this bubble and just have like air for be fasting all the time. That
What's that called? An aeritarian, or what do they call that? A breatharian?
like yeah, because I could see how like everything you read about and learn about there is some sort of toxic component to the food that we're having. And I honestly think the guilt and the overwhelm and the fear around it is often worse than what's actually putting in the body, right? So if you're
Mhm.
eating something and you're the whole time thinking like, this is so toxic, I forgot to do this and I forgot to do that, like
Right.
what health repercussions does that have? That's not
Right.
great for your digestive system either.
No, I totally agree with that. And I feel that information is power. So now when I go and I purchase supplements, I can be like, okay, is this medical grade? Is this third party tested? Just little
Yeah.
things like that, right?
Yeah.
So as far as step number one is really about understanding where you're at, getting the test done to see what you need to, you know, detox from and what's going on in the body. And that's something that you do on a yearly basis. So super powerful. And then the second step is detoxification. And so I would love for you to share a little bit. I know that, of course, it depends on what's going on in your body. And I think that's so important because it's like, a business coach or a doctor being like, hey, here's some vitamin C, but then you have a cut that's bleeding and needs stitches. It's like, no, I need something different for what's going on. But what are some of the ways that everyone, people who are listening, who haven't decided, who haven't joined your membership, who haven't done the test yet, what are some things that people can start doing today or on a regular basis to start detoxing?
Yeah, and so we have five main detox organs, and you think about how can we enhance what the body is already doing already, right? So if you think about our lungs, every time we're taking a breath, you're actually detoxing as well, right? As you're
Mm.
inhaling oxygen, getting rid of carbon dioxide, that is a detox process. And so how many times in the day do you sit and actually just breathe? Right. Most of us, like even in this podcast, I'm super excited and I'm like, but I don't even know if I took a breath yet.
You
And
and I are
how
so similar when we're excited. We're like, I love it. I love it. Some people who are listening might be like, okay, I need to slow this episode down.
but just even breathing, right? And yes, we forget about that. And so that is an important part of detoxing from your lungs. The other really important thing is pooping every single day. So just at least 1 to 2 bounds, depends on how much you're eating. It really should be every 18 hours after a meal. So if you have
Mhm.
3 meals in the day, then essentially you should have 3 bowel movements every single day. So if you're not doing that, then that can affect your hormones, liver congestion, lymphatic congestion, all the things. So really pooping every day is something simple, like increasing fiber, maybe, right? Like things just
Mhm.
to get that movement, or massage, abdominal massage, help with removing stagnation there. The other things are kidneys. So if you're not drinking water, you're obviously not going to be flushing things through your kidneys and through your bladder. And so that's a huge part of detoxing too, because like we said, those binders that we're having, a lot of those are removed from the kidneys and from the bladder. So urinating is a very healthy thing to do to help your body detox. Lymphatics, that is something as simple as moving. Our lymphatic system is like our garbage collector in our body, and it stays stagnant if we're stagnant. So, unless you're activating muscles and contracting, then your lymphatic system would stay still. And so, getting out and walking, or like as we're sitting on calls all day, can you just do some squats? Or, every hour set your timer so you can just go for a walk and get your lymphatic system moving. So those are like super simple things that every hour of the day you're like, hey, how can I help my body do what it should be doing naturally? The other one is our liver. How can we not only enhance how it detoxes, but eliminate the things that we know damage the liver, right? So an abundance of those chemicals that we could be exposed to, different products that have high chemicals in them as well. The other thing that's super interesting about liver is it picks up on emotional health too. So if you're someone who's always angry and
Mhm.
always irritated, that's a huge sign that our liver needs support as well. So even just like how that comes out energetically, whenever I see someone with road rage and that's just like so irritable, I'm like, they need a liver cleanse.
You
Like
should totally have a bumper sticker that says, angry, get my liver cleanse.
you need to relax and detox your liver because it's too much. And you just know, like someone who's really irritable and agitated and just like can't, they're just rage, that has to do with liver health too. So the more
Wow.
that we can help how our liver is processing, whether that's through like coffee is actually a good liver detoxer too. So as much as we talk bad about coffee, too much of it at least, it can help with bile and how your liver is eliminating and detoxing as well. So yeah, looking at all of those detox organs that naturally we do, but how can we enhance those on a daily basis? And like it shouldn't be too complicated.
And what I love about your story with your very first client, your cancer patient so many years ago, like 16 years ago, was he was doing all these right things to, help with his cancer, but they weren't working. He was given so many months to live. And then you started running tests, finding out, well, what's actually going on here? Okay, he's a golfer. He has these chemicals that he's exposed to. And you had a protocol to help him get rid of the toxins because the toxins essentially block the body from properly functioning. And it's just like I think you mentioned at some point, maybe not today but another time, it's like having dirty water and wondering like what was your metaphor there? I know that you shared it with me before and I was like, oh, that really resonates.
Yeah, it's like a fish tank, right? If you have this fish tank that is full of, like maybe there's like a plastic plant in there, like just fake, and then rocks that maybe were sprayed with chemicals, and maybe the water wasn't filtered properly, and so it has other chemicals, or it's just polluted, and it's a tank that's like full of algae, and there's no circulation going in there, and the water's just stagnant and filmy and musty. You think about that, the fish in that tank is going to be sick. Like you are going to be picking up on how toxic that environment is. And so with pharmaceutical care and conventional care, it's very much like, well, I should give that fish a drug to help
Right.
the fish get healthier. And you think about like, maybe that would like it maybe a temporary solution. Maybe that fish would get another month out of its life if you gave it a drug that could, induce some mechanism that maybe can help repair. However, we know that unless you clean out that environment, unless you're getting circulation back in the tank and you're changing the water and really changing in that environment, there's no way that fish can thrive unless you do those things. So yeah, that's a relatable answer when it's looking at a time and place for medications. But if the problem is surrounding you and it's just toxic and overtaking your system, you have to start with cleaning up, or else you
Mhm.
don't stand a chance to move on.
Totally. And I think that's one of the issues if we're just going to fix the problem through a medication and we're not actually detoxing. So I love that metaphor. So I know that there's different ways our immune system can be showing up. And I know that you have a few different ways that you like to articulate it. And I think this is really important. And can you break down the different ways that our immune system is functioning when it's not functioning properly, as far as defending itself from I guess enemies or
Mhm.
how do we describe it? I'd love to know a little bit more about that because when you shared this, when you're developing your talk, I was like, oh, this is so powerful. And I could see it and I could see how simple it was. And you talked a little bit about autoimmune disease. So let's just talk a little bit about autoimmune. So, what happens when someone has an autoimmune disease with their immune system? Like what's going on there? Like what's happening?
hmm Yeah, and so it's interesting because a lot of the people I see with an active cancer diagnosis, they are the ones that tell me that they're never sick. They're like,
Really?
I don't understand because I've always been healthy. I've been like the healthy friend that it's always my family members who get sick and it's not me. And so that I've heard more and more, which is super interesting. But then as you start to dig into what's going on, a lot of the people who are never sick actually have a like misdirected immune system where they're
Okay.
more prone to autoimmune conditions. So the people who are never sick per se with a cold or flu, they generally may have a diagnosis of Hashimoto's. Or they may have allergies where it's like every time they step outside on the grass, they are just, sneezing and having all those symptoms. Or they may have, I've seen this quite a bit too, where there's like rheumatoid issues. So there's autoimmune conditions where the body is just completely confused. It doesn't understand who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. So, yeah, like I mentioned to you, there's three main types of just immune issues when it comes to cancer. The first one is your immune system's just not paying attention at all. Like, so very low neutrophils, your white blood cells are compromised, and you're the person that, you are in a classroom or something and someone's sick and you know that you're going to get sick.
Right.
And not only that, it takes weeks to feel better. So that's a really big sign that your immune system needs support and we need to have all the building blocks to strengthen your immunity. The second one is where the second issue with our immune system is if it's the autoimmune condition, where it's like you could be doing all the best things to support your immune system and even doing immune stimulating support, but that actually can worsen an autoimmune disease. So, someone with MS or rheumatoid or Hashimoto's, you don't want to be overstimulating the immune system, especially with cancer, because that imbalance is going to actually make that autoimmune part worse. So for
Hmm.
them, it's more of like an immune modulating approach that you need to do.
And what does that mean exactly?
It's basically there's two types that like you've got Th1 and Th2 part of your immune system. You basically need to help balance that. So it's looking at things like reishi mushroom is a good example. Like different mushrooms, like beta glucans, like things that don't stimulate, but they also don't suppress your immune. They basically tell your immune system, like, this is it, how it needs to behave. Like it's helping support. It's just strengthening balance. It's more of a balancing
Mhm.
act of how you can nourish and support your immune system without like overstimulating it.
Got it. I love that.
Yeah. And then the third part that could just go wrong, especially with cancer, is where the cancer cells are actually emitting signals to your immune system to say, like, I'm okay. Like, you don't need to get rid of me. Like, I'm not a bad guy. Like, just ignore me and let me do my thing. And so you had a good example of that where it's like the sheep and wolves clothing, right? Where it's like they're the predator, they're like the bad guy, but they like look fine to the immune system. So it's almost like
Mhm.
no matter how much you're stimulating your immune or helping your immune system, if these cells are not recognizing cancer, it's really tough to fight this disease or to have any impact if it doesn't have that immune recognition piece.
That's so powerful. So, step one, get your scans done, know what's going on internally, at least on a yearly basis. And if you do have cancer, definitely more often. And then step two is detoxification. That would be specific to what's going on internally. But of course, you want to poo, pee, sweat, all those things consistently. And then the third one is really understanding what's going on with your immune system so that it can be boosted properly. And what are some of the protocols that really help boost the immune system once you know what's going on?
Yeah, simple things that anyone could do. One of them would be fasting. So
Mhm.
even just giving your body a break from food for 14 hours or 16 hours, depending what your labs say, or even at like 13 hours, whatever that number looks like, that has an immune impact for your system. So it's literally something as easy as just eating within an 8 to 10 hour window, which literally anybody can do. The other thing that you could do is expose your body to high heat. So whether that's a sauna or going for an intense workout, what that does is it sparks what are called heat shock proteins. So that will help how your immune system is being activated as well. So it's like putting your body under these uncomfortable stressors to really help how your immune system is being activated.
Love that. So powerful. So this has been really insightful. I'm definitely like I'm in like okay, I got to shift this, I got to do this. And I know the listeners, whether you are going through cancer or you know someone who is or you just really want to get on top of your health and really take control of your future and really step into the arena of being preventative when it comes to your health and working with someone who's just an incredible person, I highly recommend connecting with Lori. She has an incredible membership where she supports you on all of the things. And she also has, you have more than one book. You have two books or three
Yeah.
books?
Yeah, I have 2 books. Yep.
Okay, she has two amazing books. And she also has a really powerful freebie that she's offering today. Can you share a little bit about what the freebie is again?
Yeah, so it's the ultimate cancer screening guide. And as much as I don't love, all the energy being like cancer prevention and do everything to be cancer free, but it is really a health optimization guide in the lens
Mhm.
of cancer. So it's all of the screening tools that you should be aware of. So we're not shocked with, where did this come from? Why? Like, I had no idea that this was even growing in their body because there's definitely clear labs that you could look at. And even if it's just once a year, just to get this ultimate screening schedule done, just to be in the know, right? And then
Mhm.
working on, okay, if these levels are high like this, what are the things I can do to support my body so the trends are going in the right direction? So it is a free guide that you can access, and you just go to www.drlori.ca. So it's drlori.ca, and you can get that guide for free.
Amazing. And we'll also link all of that below. So as we wrap up today, Lori, is there anything else you'd like to, a last message that you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
Well, we left out the third or the fourth most important thing when it comes to someone with a cancer diagnosis. What they should do, or even anyone with a chronic health condition, is having that faith and having that belief that they're going to be okay, right? And just needing to have those tools and understanding your body, but really believing how powerful our system is and that we can change the trajectory of where our health is going when given the right tools. So anyone listening who just feels stuck or frustrated, or even like your podcast misaligned, just knowing that it's sometimes just an awareness and really having that belief to help move you forward.
Love that. Thanks again for being here. And if you are watching on YouTube, feel free to comment below and let me know. Let us know what your biggest takeaway was. And if you're listening to the show on one of the other platforms and this episode really spoke to you, please let us know and please leave a review. All right. Big love.